a stream. Did it actually catch through? Yeah, it did. That's great. I just want to appreciate the people that were waiting for me since an hour ago, and also the people that were here like yesterday when I thought I would be streaming. I had such high hopes for me, but yes, getting home, I got a little bit, just a little bit absolutely fucking wasted at my sister's wedding. And yeah, I had such high hopes for me getting like enough sleep and being able to actually, fucking live after that. So yeah, that was mistake number one for me. Mistake number two was scheduling this at 8 o'clock, thinking that I'd be able to get out of bed at that time. I woke up at 8:30. So thanks everyone for being so fucking legendary in actually just like being on time when I am not. So that's my bad. That is my bad. Look, my bed is also messy, but that's okay. We're not gonna be cleaning it today. Anyway, okay. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? VLC. We're gonna get some CRT head up in here. And I'm going to put a single RuneScape song in there. Oops. It's going to be really amusing if we can get the RuneScape song playing. Is it Control I or Control H? It is Control I. Yeah, there we go. This is another one of those good songs. Eyes. I'm gonna keep going with this shit, eh? Music info. There we go. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna start it right. Ah, here it is. Are you prepared for this? If ever nostalgia for the current age, like 20-somethings, was a soundtrack, like if you have a 19 in your birth year at the start, 19, then oh, sorry. Yeah, so if ever there was a soundtrack for pure condensed nostalgia, for anyone with a birth year that starts with 19, that's what this is. That is what this is. Anyway, I'm probably gonna... Alright. That was very loud. Okay. Oh, I should probably make sure that's still visible. Oh, that is. Alright. Oh, that's the playlist. Alright. Excellent. Now I'm going to pour my coffee. Oh, it's going to be a very weak one. I need a grinder. I tried to do the mortar and pestle. Oh, hang on. I tried to do the mortar and pestle thing again, and it didn't really work. Well, I'm gonna have some bloody bits. It's fine. I don't give a shit. Oh, it's another beautiful day today. Oh, I need to go out into the city, get a coffee grinder, do some blood work. Some third thing. Really should be writing those things down. That'd be right. Okay, so let's have a look at what I've got so far.
Okay, what does YES spell?
Yes.
What?
Hang on. Basic blocking almost done.
Okay, what does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes. What is happening?
What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes. What are you crying for?
What does it...
What are you doing?
Okay, try again. What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Ease. AS. You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. Yes.
Alright, I'm gonna do brighten
What
up
does
section,
YES?
What are you crying for?
What does?
What are you doing?
Okay, try again.
What are you doing?
Okay, try again. What does?
Okay.
What does?
Yeah.
Does YES spell?
She's not actually contacting his chest. Okay, so I'm going to move this back.
What? YES spell? Y-E-S spell. Y-E-S spell.
Yes.
What does Y-E-S? Y-E... Y-E... E...
One other thing that I think I'll add to my headcanon as well is that, like, pear butter is kind of as strong as Bright Mac. Or, like, I would say she's probably, like, I don't know, maybe 80% or, like, very close to the same level of physical strength as Bright Mac is. Primarily because of the fact that Applejack is just so fucking strong. And that is because of the fact that, you know, she's being powered by the elements of harmony, but yeah, it's kind of adds the aspect of, like, you've got the hidden strength and then you've got the physical strength and then you add them together and you get absolute Giga Chad children.
Y-E-S... Y-E-S spell. E-S spell.
Yes.
Spell.
Yes. Yes.
Hello. Yes, yes. The lighting I really appreciate. I just got a texturous bloody tree. Put it behind the fog lighting, the lighting there. And the grass is also very nice, but I've mostly been focusing on these two's blocking motions. And then once I finish that, I think I might go to the camera motions, and then refine the blocking a bit, and then the full animation, and then see what I'm going to do with the scene. Because this scene at the moment is built exactly for where this camera is positioned at the moment. If I move the camera around, the scene's going to mess up. So I didn't want to do any more of this, but this is sort of like a general idea of what I'm after. Because I'm trying to make this to be similar to the one where she sings the song on the she sings the song on the top of the hill, because that's the guitar, and this is kind of just how they're hanging out afterwards. That's the general vibe of what I'm trying to achieve here. But yes, hello Jordan. It's been a while. It's been a hot second.
Spell.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
What does he?
I think I might need to delay that motion a bit.
Yes. Yes.
What?
Yes.
What does Y-E-S spell?
Yes.
I just want to test something out real quick. If I just save this real quick. In fact, I'm actually gonna save it as delete Hola. Hola, Pinkie Pie. Also, Mask Creator. I've completely missed over you. AS. Ease. Newman ultramicroscopic silicovolcanic coniosis. That's what it spells. Yeah, EYES. Newman ultramicroscopic silicovolcanic coniosis. Alright. Right, so I'm going to open up Eyes Delete. Oh, I need to put my mic levels back down so it loads in. Oh no, it doesn't. Alright, cool. I'm just gonna keep this over here just in case. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do a quick test. Ew. So I'm gonna do a quick test to see what it looks like if I just dumbly smooth their motions here. So if I just grab their motions, actually I should just grab the rig body. Root. And root. Cool. So if I just dumbly smooth their motions. Oh no! So maybe only in the time I need.
Yes.
It's gonna be very bad motions, but let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if I just submit that and then unselect.
Okay, what does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes.
Oh, bit Primax.
What is happening?
What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes. What are you crying for?
What does it...
What are you doing?
Okay, try again. What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Ease. AS. You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. Yes.
Okay, so you can sort of see what's going on here. This is just this is just a like this is a, like I said before, it's a dumb smoothing of them blocking. But this is what blocking
What does
is able to do.
YES spell?
It allows you to
What
get
does
this
EYES
basic motion
spell?
behind
Yes.
what you're trying to do out of the way.
What does EYES?
Anyway, I'm gonna open up eyes again, and I'm gonna delete eyes delete. I'm gonna delete this, yes, and open up that. Continue without saving. But yeah, so that's sort of like what you're after there. Interesting. So you see the difference between the this is the default camera settings you see on the left here, the default camera settings, especially with the way that the ambient occlusion is being made. It's just terrible. And then as soon as you swap it to my current settings, which are the following, where the bias is slightly up, the strength is slightly up, and the radius is way down, you find that it looks like this. And I think that just looks a hell of a lot better. You can still see the ambient occlusion, but it's not as pronounced here. It doesn't take over the entire scene. Very important to find an ambient occlusion setting that you actually really, really enjoy. And there's different settings for different things. Don't just use mine. I want you to be able to experiment with how you think it looks the best. Because I don't want 700 copies of my art style. I want 700 unique artists to be made out of them just playing around with the shit. So have fun, guys. Have fun. That's all you really need to do. That's all I'm really after. Just have fun. But your first 10 animations, don't post it online. No one's gonna like it. It's shit. It's gonna be bad. If you are just starting out, genuine, do not post the first like 10 animations like publicly online on a YouTube channel. How dare you copy now? No, Master Crit, you can't copy me 700 times. That's illegal. But yes, if you actually want to do things like this, then just have fun with what you're making, and you'll find that the audience will come to you. Don't try to modify your content to fit the audience. Let the audience come to you. And you might find that your specific style of animation may only be like, may only be watched by a specific dedicated group of people. But that's kind of what you really want. You just want a small group of people that really enjoy your content. That's kind of what I'm after, and kind of like, I used to want to be able to have this massive wide audience, but like, I've sort of fallen out of love with that dream. And like, I don't really care how many people there are, just so long as I have people like Master Creator and Jordan Hale, and you know, people that just decide to pop in because they're interested in my content. That's the type of audience that I want, so thanks for being here. But that being said, I'm not going to bow to your demands. You are going to bow to my creations. Anyway. This is a very good song. Exterminator. Should probably just lower the sound a bit, just a tiny bit. How far is this? Oh, okay, no, I need to cancel out my ambient noise levels, so. That's better. That should be better. And then my eyes are still audible.
Okay, what does YES spell?
Yes.
Alright, cool. Excellent. So that's one of the things that you have to be able to understand when doing recordings like this, because I guarantee you that, you know, when you're just starting out, you'll be making mistakes like this, where it's like, you're, you know, so you might find that, you know, your microphone settings are just not set properly, and it just kind of sounds terrible. Even though you have a very decent microphone, it just sort of sounds bad, and it's overshooting everything, and it looks terrible. And then you start looking at what like waveforms actually are. So if I go ahead and go to my screen, hello, this is OBS. You can see what's happening. My mic is just absolutely peaking, and I apologize for your ears, but that's what it sort of sounds like. So what you want to do is that you want to move down your microphone quality until it stays just underneath the yellow section. The yellow section is probably where it's probably good. But then you also need to bring in your microphone properties. You see, the microphone level's at 100. No matter how low your yeah, this is one of the things. No matter how you change your settings elsewhere, if your microphone is picking up garbage, then it's not going to be doing any good. So the next tip I'll have for you is to lower this down. One thing about sound waveforms and audio engineering is that you can always raise the level of volume that you're capturing from the microphone. In fact, it's best to actually put the microphone settle all the way down, and then you can actually like yell at it, and it actually sounds decent, or at least it sounds okay. You know, it's decent, all right. And the more energy you can put into your voice, then the better it's gonna be. But that's if you put your microphone settings way down. But if you're talking at a cadence like I am, I like having it somewhere like 60, and then I like putting the microphone volume or the transmission volume all the way up. Now the next thing is that I don't know how this sounds like. It probably still sounds absolutely fucking terrible. That's because I put it onto 8,000 hertz, which is the garbage doo-doo poo-poo quality. It's basically like I'm in a phone call. And when I put the sound all the way up, and when I put it on telephone quality, it's going to be terrible. So every microphone you'd want, try and chuck it on this one. It's going to complain about it because it's currently being used, but let's see. But now it's going to come back and it's going to be a lot better. So get yourself a good microphone. This was a $200 microphone that I bought like 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's still doing well. That's one of the other things. If you buy decent audio equipment, the audio equipment will outlast you. So that's where it is. I just wanted to take a moment and hear what that shit sounded like. So I'm gonna go quiet. I'm gonna go back to the stream. So that's where it is. I just wanted to take a moment and hear what that shit sounded come to you. Don't try to my content. That's one of the things that you have. Even though you have your, so you might find that your microphone settings are just not set properly, and it just kind of sounds terrible. Even though you have a very decent microphone, it just sort of sounds bad, and it's overshooting everything, and it looks terrible. And then you start looking at what like waveforms actually are. So if I go ahead and go to my screen, hello, this is OBS. You can see what's happening. My mic is just absolutely peaking, and I apologize for your ears, but that's what it sort of sounds like. So what you want to do is that you want to move microphone quality until it stays just underneath the yellow section. The yellow section is probably where it microphone volume, I meant to say. But then you also need to bring in your microphone property. See, the microphone level's at 100. No matter how low your yeah, that's the good one. No matter how you change your settings elsewhere, if your microphone is picking up garbage, then it's not going to be good. So the next tip I'll have you. So you lower your sound down, and then you bring the sound everywhere else up. So what I was talking about when you can always raise up microphone quality is the fact. Hang on, what does it actually sound like? That's not too bad. So the thing I was talking about when you can always like raise up your microphone quality is the fact that if you look down to the absolute waveform of it, and I'm just going to use this piece of envelope letter because I don't actually have... actually, I can actually use the paper itself because I really don't give a shit about this. Cool. So, this is an audio waveform. So this is the purest of tones, a sine wave. And this just means that the speaker is going forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. Just imagine that this is the speaker's normal position, the straight line there, and this is the translation forwards and backwards it's experiencing. And that's what a waveform is. That's the basics behind all sound. It's just a speaker moving back and forward, and that's what generates the sound pressure that gets translated through your ears and through your brain to make actual sound that you can understand. When you record the speakers can only go so far. So that's like the minimum and maximum position that a microphone or a speaker can go. One of the other things that you have to understand is that a microphone is just a speaker in reverse. What I'm doing is I'm speaking into a speaker membrane that's being pushed by my voice and then is being recorded and interpreted in the computer as a digital set of values for a speaker to actually make. So there you go. It's just the opposite process that I'm able to do. That doesn't mean to say that you can just talk into a speaker and record it. You can, but you have to sort of set it up right for it to be able to do that. There's a lot of like audio engineering and shit like that to do. When you are peaking your microphone like I was demonstrating before and it was going over the maximum, that means that your input levels was going like this. It was going really high, really far out of the way. And remember, the maximum is still here. And so what the actual microphone was actually putting into the program was something that looks a bit like this. So I've got another color here. I'm just going to quickly draw this in. Because remember, you have your maximums and your minimums. And the speaker can't go past that, and your microphone can't detect anything past that either. And you get what is known as peaking, or microphone peaking. And that just means that you've attempted to push the either you've attempted to push the membrane further than it can actually go, or that how your microphone interpreted what your sound was would push the speaker further than what it can go. So you can sort of see the blue lines here. It's it goes up and then hits the maximum and then continues straight forward and then goes down with the same audio waveform as before, and it continues backwards and it goes up and down. So if you're peaking your microphone when you're talking normally, and if you try to reduce it to reduce the sound levels, because of course you want to make sure that that speaker isn't freaking out, you want to go only a little bit. If you reduce that amplitude, then what you'll actually find is, I'm going to write this in blue because this is what you're going to get, is you're going to get an audio waveform that looks something like this. Now, I didn't. This would increase the frequency, which would make it higher. Just pretend that it's the same as this, but I'm not a very good artist. So, this is the your minimums and maximums of the speaker is still the same where it was before. But since you've reduced the volume of it, it's now no longer hitting the top parts, but the quality of the waveform itself has been diminished. And that's just because you can't add in quality back in when you've recorded it at a loss or when you've recorded it too high. So always record your microphone levels like as low as you can go, and then increase it later. Always record it as low as you can go, and then increase it with your audio effects or whatnot, as opposed to recording at a high volume and then lowering it. So do it the other way around. Just because of the fact that you can't add in detail back. You can remove detail very easily, just demonstrated that, but you can't add detail back in. So that's a very good demonstration, a reasonable demonstration for how to get your sound quality as best as you can. Spoken as a true idiot. You want to make sure that your sound profile is in some way relative to how you want to talk. So if you talk at a general sort of pace like this and you're not really all that expressive all that much, then you can set it to like a medium sound level. But if you want to be very enthusiastic and you want to shout into the microphone and things like that, then definitely bring the microphone audio levels way down, and then you'd be able to increase it later on. So just be mindful of that. Yes, yeah. So, yeah. And you can also attest there, Jordan, that you recorded a low level and then bring it up in post. You recorded a low volume level and bring the volume up in post. And one of the other things that Dank Pods, the audio Australian lad, always says as well, is that your audio equipment chain is as strong as its weakest link. It's as strong as its weakest link. And by that I mean you could have the best microphone in the world, but if your cable's shit, then you've got a shit microphone. You could have the best microphone in the world, you can have... and this also includes your experience of audio things. The best microphone in the world, the best cable in the world, the best audio receiver in your computer, the best recording equipment on the computer itself. But if you've got a shit headphones, then it's going to be shit. You're going to hear it as bad. So you need to have like you lower your audio experience to the level of your weakest link. So if you've got terrible headphones but brilliant audio recording everywhere else, then it's going to sound terrible to you because you've got terrible headphones. If you've got decent headphones, then it's going to sound decent if you've got perfect everything else, but it's not going to be as crisp as it should be with the proper headphones. And that also includes, if you're making songs and things for like YouTube, for instance, the type of compression that you use when you export it, the type of compression that YouTube uses when it recompresses it to streaming format if you didn't export it properly, and that as well will degrade the quality, and it will only be as strong as its weakest link. So that's the whole shebang that you want to do. Like you don't send uncompressed WAV files to YouTube. You have to sort of compress it in a way that it makes it sound nice to you, and then hope that YouTube doesn't degrade it further. I'm not sure if this demonstration would work as well, but if you go ahead and swap the quality back down to 1440p on your end, then you might find that the audio levels as well would decline. Although one of the other things is that the differences between video streaming and then audio streaming is entirely different, and 1440p could just reduce the video things and leave the audio quality untouched. With 1440p though, it will most likely crush the audio a bit, but as soon as you get to 36p, 360p, the audio quality kind of remains unchanged no matter how much because that's like, you don't need much to do audio. You don't need much data stream to do audio, that is. Because when you think about it, so audio only needs to control two speakers, your left and your right, and so you only need a data stream for each one. And you know, your data stream itself can be pretty complicated, but you only need a continuous single line of data for each of your headphones. With video quality, however, every single pixel needs a data stream. That's if you're doing it uncompressed. If you're doing it without any sort of calculations at all, every single pixel needs an individual data stream. So if you've got a okay, so if you've got a 4x4 monitor, a monitor that has 4 pixels left and 4 pixels down, or 4 pixels right and 4 pixels down, because usually the 0 for monitors in the top left corner, that's a little hide little specks for you. Anyway, so if you've got 4 right and 4 down, you've got a 16-bit monitor, or you've got 16 pixels in your monitor, you will need 16 bits to properly display it properly. And that's only if you have a monitor which is where the pixels are either on or off. If you've got it where it's like slightly, they could be off and then anywhere between off and on, you may have a grayscale monitor, but you still need to have 16 bytes worth of data in order to display an image on that monitor. And then if you add color into it, you need 16 times 3 bytes of data. So whatever that is, I'm too early for maths. 48. You need 48 bytes of data to display on that 4x4 monitor if you're going to do it in color. 16 bytes of data. And now you add frame rate into it. So if you want to display 60 frames a second, then you will need 16 times 3, which is the amount of color, times 60 a second in order to display the things properly. So you can see how very quickly the amount of bytes just keeps going up and up and up and up. So if I grab a calculator here, so you need, for this 4x4 monitor, 16 times 3 different colors, which is RGB, times 60 frames a second, means you need a buffer stream of at least 2.8 kilobytes every second. Every second is 2.8 kilobytes. And if you multiply this by like a minute of footage, then you've already got 172 kilobytes, 172.8 kilobytes of space or data. So if you've got a video file which is uncompressed, this is also uncompressed, mind you, a video file that is a minute long that is to be displayed on a monitor which is a 4x4 monitor, so only 16 pixels, and that is at 60 frames a second, it's already 172 kilobytes. Now, monitors these days, typically, your general computer monitor is 1080p, which is, ready, 1920 multiplied by 1080. And that is already 2,073,600. I forgot what numbers it sounded like. So 2,073,600 different pixels individually. Multiply that by 3, and you get color pixels. So that's 6,222,800 different pixels. Oh, hang on, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. My bad. There we go. So 6,222,800 pixels with RGB values in them. So each individual little squares with RGB values in them. Okay? If you just want to have an image which takes up that amount, like a single image that doesn't move, you're already looking at 6.2 megabytes of data. 6.2 megabytes. This is uncompressed, pure, raw image file. 6.2 megabytes of data. Just an image, a single image. If you want to have a video file, uncompressed, mind you, I keep saying uncompressed, and I'm going to explain that a little bit later. If you want to have an uncompressed video file, which is, say, 24 frames a second, for 1 second, so times that by 24, boom, you're already 149 megabytes. Okay? Now, if you want to have this for a whole minute of playtime, then kabooey. You've got 8 gigabytes, 8.9 or even 9 gigabytes if we want to like round it up a bit more. So you've got 9 gigabytes of uncompressed data file, which is a 1080p image, which is a video that lasts for a minute and has, you know, the raw data stream interacting with the screen itself. This video file that goes for a minute at 24 frames a second is already 8.9 gigabytes. 8.9 gigabytes. If you want to up that to 60 frames a second, if I divide this by 24, multiply this by 60, then that is already 22 gigabytes. Massive. 22 gigabytes. So you can see why YouTube doesn't like uncompressed video files. It will compress it to a streamable video file. Now, one of the things that YouTube and the the video engineers realized is that if we have a look at this animation, for instance, and if we just look at 2 frames, so these 2 frames here, one of the things that if I were to render this and upload it to YouTube, one of the things that YouTube recognizes is that, you know, the only thing that's moving is Bright Mac's head. So it can keep all of this detail exactly the same and just move the pixels that are related to Big Mac's head. And then it will, of course, grab the new detail for whatever's behind the tree, or behind his hat there, and then, you know, remove some detail over here and just kind of move his head over there. And so all the differences between these 2 frames is only those pixels. And so you don't actually need to physically reload the entire screen. You can just say, all right, keep all of these the same, and then just move these pixels here. And then that makes it a hell of a lot less, it takes up a hell of a lot less space. And that is one of the things behind compression. That's what I was talking about, compression. You will compress the video file by making it so that instead of having the entire data buffer as its render, it'll just be, you know, it'll just be the differences between the 2 frames. Most video rendering programs can do that automatically, so even all the way down to Windows Movie Maker can do that for you. It'll compress it for you for upload to YouTube. Sony Vegas absolutely does that. You know, Adobe Premiere absolutely does that. You might have to look through the settings and things like that. DaVinci Resolve can also do that as well, but again, you'll have to look through the settings to make sure you got it right, and then that should be right. How long does it take to render a minute of animation? It really depends on what your settings are. So one of the things that you can do to get a taste on what your settings are is that if you have your progressive refinement set up like this, if you change the thing and let it render here, and you look down at the bottom right and see your samples rating, you can't really see that from this border. So let me just get rid of this border. Boop. So if you have a look down at the bottom right of my screen, you see the samples here. And again, depending on the quality of my stream and then the quality of your recording, you might not be able to see it. But there's only 16 samples need to be rendered, and it will render it pretty quickly. Yeah, So it would take less than a second to render a single frame. When it goes back to 1, that's when it renders it. If I go to my render settings and put it at the maximum amount, this is what I used to do, by the way. One of the reasons why rendering took so long. All right, hang on. Let me start an actual timer. Where's my phone? I'm gonna grab my phone. I'm going to. Okay. I'm gonna grab my phone. I'm gonna do a stopwatch, and I'm going to change the thing. I'm gonna tell him how long it takes. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And this is rendering a single frame, one single frame. So keep an eye on that samples blank things. It's the amount of like parts of the frame it's sampling in order to figure it out. When you increase the motion blur, it'll sample the frames surrounding your frames to see what it needs to blur. And then the depth of field, it'll try and sample where the objects are in relation to the camera's aperture focus level and try and spread out the pixels a bit and blur it. I'm not sure if SFM does rake. Oh, it just finished. So it took about 30, 32, 33 seconds to render one frame. So if you're doing it at max settings like I used to do, and you want to render one frame, here we go back to the counter, and it takes 35 seconds, right? If you want to render a minute, 60 seconds of 60 frames a second, so that's 3,600 frames, multiplied by, let's say, 34 seconds, that's the amount of seconds it's going to take to render your entire animation. Divide that by 60 to get minutes. Divide that by 60 again to get hours. And you've got 34. Oh, okay, the amount of, okay, that makes sense because we're running it easy. So it's going to take 34 hours to render a single minute of like the maximum level of recording. And that's only 1 minute of it. I, at the moment, render 32 depth of field and, actually no, 32 motion blur and 16 depth of field. Actually, I try going up to like 64 and 32 just to add that little bit extra. So let's time how long that takes. So let's go ahead and do another. There it is, 2 seconds. 2 seconds. So it's going to take 2.7 or 2 hours to render a minute of footage if you do it at 60 frames a second. So 60 frames a second is what I like to do. 60 seconds. You multiply that by 2.7 seconds to get the amount of like full-on seconds it will take, and you divide it by 60 to get the minutes. Divide that by 60 to get the hours. So basically, we're doing 60 times 60 times the amount of seconds it takes to render one frame, divided by 60, divided by 60. So we're getting rid of those two 60s. So the amount of time it takes to render 1 minute of footage at this level of settings is the amount of seconds is the amount of time it takes to render a single frame. How cool is that, eh? And that's the ratio. So the amount of time it takes to render a single frame, roughly about 2 or so seconds. It's going to take about 2 hours to render a minute of footage. This animation is a little over a minute, almost a minute and a half. So it's going to take 3.5 hours to render this footage, roughly speaking, if every single frame takes 2 seconds to render. The amount of time it takes is dependent upon the amount of models in the scene, the amount of motions it has to calculate, the the focus points and how much lighting there is as well, and all that sort of good stuff. But the Source engine takes care of all of that. We don't have to really think about that at all. But yes, it is quite ridiculous to see how just fast these sorts of calculations can balloon. So yeah, that's what you're doing. This is what you have to keep in mind. Cool. Anyway, back to menu. I'm gonna turn this heat up. Yes. E's. AS. Alright. Oh, I need to put the music back on. There we go. I would happily sit here and animate in silence for an hour. I actually find myself being able to focus a lot better with no music. Because sometimes I just kind of fall into appreciating the music, and I'm like, well, I'm not animating now, am I? Go. Oh, your second. Okay, hang on. Your second comment. Yeah, no, that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying about this headcanon, man. The fact that the reason why Big Mac says yep, and I've been saying this in the last couple streams as well, that, you know, this interaction that they've had after their, you know, special moment with the guitar. Pear Butter says, "Hey, I've got this thing I wanted to show you. I wanted to, you know, I overheard this from Safan." She said this the other day, and I thought it was so funny. Now, spell, what does YES spell? And then Brighton would say, yes. Now, what does EYES spell? Yes. And so they'd have this interaction, of course, but in their voices, duh. And, you know, Pear Butter is absolutely she is pissing herself laughing from this. And so Bright Mac is saying, you know, ES. And so what they do after this moment is that, just to make Pear Butter laugh, Bright Mac would start responding to, you know, things she says with ES, just to give Pear Butter a bit of a laughter sort of thing, you know, because it's a nice fun reminder of their moment they shared up in here. So yeah, you know, Pear Butter would say, "Hey, can you take out the trash?" And Bright Mac would go, "Yes, I can." And then they'd start, you know, laugh. Yeah, she'd laugh about it. So, children get into the mix now. And of course, Bright Mac doesn't know how to let a joke die, and Pear Butter just enjoys being with Bright Mac, so she'll laugh at anything he says. Once children get involved, once Big Mac is there, he grows up hearing Bright Mac say to Pear Butter, "Yes," to anything that she says, just "Yes," and then Big Mac picking up on that and the interaction of how much Pear Butter enjoys Bright Mac saying that, Big Mac starts saying "Yep," and then that makes Pear Butter just absolutely piss herself laughing, because now something that Bright Mac was saying her is something that Big Mac's saying her, and with such a positive interaction associated with Big Mac saying "Yes," makes it so that that's the thing he goes to anytime anyone asks him anything. He'll just say "Yep," and he'll just keep going "Yep," because it now reminds him of his dad and his mum, and how much of a great relation that they had around just him saying "Yep." And so now that's become part of his character. So that's my absolute headcanon for this animation. Now, I didn't think of that originally from when I heard the audio. When I heard the audio, I was just like, oh, it was when the male in the situation said, here we go. It's when he says, "Why are you crying for?" that I'm like, that's one of the Macs. It's one of the Macs. It has to be. It was a toss-up between Bright Mac and Pear Butter, or Big Mac and Sugar Bell. That was the two things. Big Bright Mac and Pear Butter, Big Mac or Sugar Bell. And I was like, oh, who should it be? Who should it be? And it wasn't any sort of external decisions that made me... I didn't think of that headcanon when I chose on Bright Mac. The reason why I chose Bright Mac is because of the fact that Big Mac has like a yep. You know, he has a specific way of speaking. He's very slow with what he says. Yep. Too big to handle on your own. One pony plus hundreds of apple trees. It just doesn't add up to... So, you know, that's how Big Mac says. And so it'd be a little bit more of a stretch of the imagination to have this person speaking. That person matched with Big Mac's voice. It just doesn't make sense that way. But it matches a hell of a lot more with Bright Mac's voice, because he's all a little bit like this, you know? Bright Mac sounds a little bit more like this. Pear Butter, I want to dedicate my entire life to making you happy. That's the sort of voice that Bright Mac has, or at least that's where I remember it from. And that does kind of sound a little bit like this. Yeah, that does kind of sound a little bit like this. So that's why I was like, all right, it's Pear Butter and Bright Mac, full on. That's my decision. I'm sticking to it. And then the headcanon later, when I realized, oh wait, this sounds a lot like Big Mac saying, yep. So I'm like, oh shit, that's where it came from. Oh no. And so that's my headcanon for this this animation. It developed after the numerous decisions that led to me making the animations, and like, holy shit, this fits so perfectly with the show. The only thing I need is words, and I can say, I can. So the characters I can make, like I can impersonate pretty easily. Are Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants is my favorite one. I can sort of do Big Mac. I can somewhat do like the Doctor in the 100th episode. Somewhat do that voice. And there's a couple more. There is a couple more, but my favorite is Fancy Pants by a hard yard mile. I said this once and it kind of just made sense. Yes, I spent a majority of my youth ferrying people from one place to the other. Of the things I've seen, the places I've gone, the things I've seen, the people I've met. Though, of course, it was only the local pub and back. And then there's also, I say, that's one way to make an introduction. You're staying at Canterlot Castle? You know the princess? I can't remember what he says after that. And I say, clearly you're some pony worth bumping into. Listen, I've got a VIP box reserved for the Wonderbell Derby this afternoon. Would you be so kind as to join me and a few of my companions there? Yeah, so I can sort of... I've definitely lost it a bit based on how long ago it has been since I've actually done those voices, but yeah, I can do that. And then, of course, Big Mac is really easy. Hey, yep, you just kind of have to lower your voice, and then once you start understanding what it makes to be a, once you start understanding what it does, what you need to do to make a Southern accent, especially one as muted as this one, that's kind of like that's the kind of voice that I'm imagining for Big Mac if he. This is the kind of voice that I'd imagine for Big Mac if his Mac wasn't so big. This is regular Mac talking. And then all you need to do is go through preview a couple times, and then once you've lowered your voice a bit more, that's what I'd imagine that Big Mac would sound. And then all you need to do is kind of stay back a bit and slow down, and that's what I imagine like the type of character that Big Mac would be if he was like a human and whatnot. If he grew up in the South or the Wild West eras, this is what I'd imagine Big Mac would sound like. He'd be that really low, gruff, gravelly type of character. And then you want to make it approachable to a kid's show, so you know how to get rid of all that gruff. And then you start talking like this. And then you add what Big Mac says. Yup. Nope. Too big to handle on your own. Yes, but one pony plus hundreds of apple trees, that just doesn't add up to... So, yeah, this sort of thing. And I'd have to, like, keep like focusing hard onto it and actually make it like perfectly spot on, because I do like trying to make it as close as I can. But yeah, it's just kind of like what you have to do to get to those sorts of voices. And this is the type of process that voice actors go through in order to make the voices for their characters. You don't just have the final product instantly. You talk with your director. The director says, this is the type of sound profile I'm looking for. One, the character is Southern. Okay, so I'm going to start talking in a Southern accent. The character is really large, so I want you to have that deep reverse. Okay, so I'm going to start talking in a very low Southern accent. And the character is, he's a little bit friendlier. He's like a gentle giant, so he talks really slowly and calmly. Okay, so I'm going to start talking very slowly and very deeply because he's a big character. He's Big Mac. This is Big Mac. And then, the main thing he says is yes and no. So yep and nope. So yep, nope. Boom, there you go. You've made Big Mac. And that's the same process as you go through everything. It's a lot easier when you can understand what it takes to make the accents themselves. So, Fancy Pants, all right? So he's a little bit easier for me to make Fancy Pants because my natural accent, Australian, the one that I'm talking right now, Australian, but specifically City, Brisbane, Australian. That's like a very important distinction to make, because City, Brisbane, Australia, or Brisbane City, Australia, that accent, I started with city specifically because there's regional Brisbane, Australia. That's a different accent. And then you have, regional Queensland, Australia. And then you have Townsville, city Townsville, regional Queensland, Australia. And then you have, far north Queensland, Australia. There's so many different accents and ways of speaking that it's unbelievable. So the reason why I think I'm very suited to be to be able to mimic all these different accents is because in the Brisbane city, very multicultural. There's a lot of different accents here in general. Allow me to listen to it a bit more. But also, the Australian accent is a very neutral one. The Brisbane city Australian accent is a very, very neutral one, and it doesn't take too hard to change it to different ones. The American accent, which is what I'm doing right now, is essentially what I talk as normally, but changing a bit of the way that I pronounce certain letters. One of the things that you realize is that Americans always pronounce their R's. Every single time that an R come up, you have to hit it. Every single time. Every single time. You have to hit those R's, because that's what Americans do. They always hit the hard R's. Now, take your mind out of that. Just pull it right back. Just don't worry about it. When you start talking in a Southern accent, all you need to do then is get the hitting that hard R sort of stuff, and add a little bit more of a timbre to it. You got a bit of a bounce. Southerns have a bit of a bounce. That's how it goes. You just have to start talking with that bit of a bounce. If you want to force yourself physically to talk in that American the Southern American accent, what you need to do is start moving your hands like this. And that will actually make you talk a little bit closer to how, you want to talk. You got a specific tempo. If you want to slow it down, then you slow down your hands and you start talking like that. And the physical nature of your hands moving your chest is what causes you to have those, those moments of breathlessness and moments of power associated with certain words. And all you have to do at that point is match the cadence of what you're saying to how you're breathing, and that's all you need to do. So start doing things like this to get into the habit of it, and then you just take your hands away, and that's all you need to do to make an Southern American accent. Yeah, you just gotta control your breathing. But yeah, I was trying to stay in the neutral American accent, but I found that as soon as I start talking in a different accent that's similar to a different one I'm trying to go to, I keep falling into it. So if I go back and just start talking in that, I'm trying to hit either the Dallas accent, which is a very neutral one. People in Dallas don't actually talk like they do in like Houston or south of Texas. The Dallas accent is actually very neutral. I can't really do that one efficiently because I feel like it's so close to how I talk normally, and I kind of either start slipping back into how I talk normally, or like there are certain words that get sort of mixed between those two different accents. But since my normal accent does sound kind of similar to it, I can sort of like play it off a bit. But yeah, so yeah, the other one is the L's. They always pronounce L's, and they also put L's where they're not supposed to be, like the word both. If I pronounce that correctly, both. Some Americans say both. Both of them. Both of them. And they put a little imaginary L in there. And talk, for instance. You have some people that say talk, you have some people that say talk, and then you have some people that say talk. You know, it's like different ways of pronouncing it based on how you put your voice. And all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that you have to realize when it comes to voice acting. It's not about the voice as well. That's one of the other big. What American puts I in both? Yeah, you have to listen out for it, really. I wouldn't be able to point to a specific region that does it, but there are a lot of Americans. I say a lot of Americans, but there is a specific American dialect that does put an L in both, and you know the way you're supposed to pronounce it, both. Oath. That's the Australian way because of the way you hit the o both. But there's a bunch of Americans out there that do say both. It sort of reminds me of the North Montana sort of accent. Hey, it's either the North Montana or it's like the Washington State accent. I don't know. I'm just trying to pick another Northwest, or it could be both of them. It could be both of them. Yes, and that was one of the other fun things that in learning that sort of thing, like Utah, the only time that people from Utah pronounce the T in any word is when they say their state Utah, and that's it. That's the only time a T exists, and in the middle of a word, it's Utah. It's the mountains of Utah. The mountains of Utah. It's not the mountains, it's the mountains of Utah. Anyway. But yeah, so that's the sort of things. And then you just sort of got to start listening out for those different voices and things. But if you really, those are the sort of things that you have fun in parties sort of thing. But if you want to make a career out of your voice, you have to know how to act. Voice acting is not the voice part, it's the acting through your voice. The acting bit is the important part. You have to learn how to act. That's the thing you should be focusing on. Act first, voice later. It'll increase your portfolio if you can do different voices. If you can change the way that you talk based off of different things. You add an accent, you add a physical thing, and then you might be able to apply that to different characters a bit easier. But the main important thing is to learn how to act properly, and then you start playing with your voice. Because, like... Okay, alright, sorry. Water. There's a big difference between what American puts L in both. That's just reading it, that's the narration. You might be asking yourself, what American puts L in both? What American puts L in both? Feels like you're watching a documentary, hey, because the way I'm, like, specifically speaking about those words, I'm trying to make you interested in what I'm saying as if I'm presenting it to a class. Now, you might be asking, what American puts L in both? And then I can do that documentary style in a different accent. Now, you might be asking, what American puts an L in both? Both and talk. And then now you can like pull aside. I am now I'm a cowboy in the Wild West. Just heard this a stupid fact of someone putting L in both. What American puts L in both? What the hell? What are you talking about? What American puts an L in both? So you have to sort of you have to act through the lines first, and then you add the accent to it. I can go in my natural accent. What American puts an L in both? What the hell? What are you talking about? What's this sort of bullshit? Like, you add the the voice to the acting, and that's how you make voice acting. The acting is the important bit. So learn to act in your own voice first. Learn to add the different inflections, the different audience you're trying to project to, the different styles that you're trying to get for, and then you can play with your different voices and things like that. But that's the main part about the thing that you have to understand when wanting to get into voice acting. It's not about the voice, it's about the acting. You could have the worst voice imaginable. You could talk as if you've been smoking for the last 500 years, you know. And you could have a voice that's not very pleasant to listen to, but I guarantee you could be a character somewhere just talking like this. And now, okay, take your mind back. I'm an old gentleman trying to warn people not to enter a dungeon. Do not enter this field. The things I've seen, the people going in, they don't come out. Please, I beg of you. Do not go into this field, please. Please. And of course, you know, adding to all the things of discussion I've had before, the way you record it, the way you put it into the computer, that's the other part of it. Diesel punk old man voice, that is. I've been flying through these fields for so long. The things I've seen here. The amount of people that just... Yep, have you ever had a young man so full of life and ambition going off on one flight with these people? They don't come back. If they do come back, they're not the same. They age 60 years in one flight. I once saw a man jump off the railing just because he didn't want to come back home. Not so much the things that he's seen that made you, but he couldn't face his family again. So he jumped off the railings. We didn't find his body. Not in one piece, that is. I'm pretty sure they found his boot somewhere near the shoreline. We think he landed in the water, hopefully. But let's just hope he died on the impact and didn't get wrangled by whatever the hell's living out there. It's a different world. So please, I beg of you, do not go on this open field. So, yeah. And it's about, yes, it is about the acting first, and then you can add the voices to it, you know? And you just have to have a discussion with different directors and things like that. If you know, let them direct you. That is what they're there for. Try to appreciate their directions and try to get into it, you know? Because that's what they're there for. That's what directors are there for. They're there to direct the actors. So if you ever have, like, you know, a scene where there's this really high profile actor who's usually very good and they're just not acting properly in this one scene, it's rarely the actor's fault. It's usually because the directions they were given were so bad they tried to make whatever they could from that. So directing is acting in and of itself. You have to be able to know how to you have to know how to act in order to how to direct properly. Which is why there's a lot of directors that also feature in their own there's a lot of directors that feature in their own works because they themselves are actors. Like, for instance, did you know that in Iron Man, Iron Man's bodyguard Happy is actually the director of the Iron Man? I'm pretty sure. Jon Favreau. Yeah, Jon Favreau. He directed Iron Man, didn't he? Jungle Book 2, Chef's Show. Yeah, Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Happy, Iron Man, Tony Stark's assistant and bodyguard, whatever you want to call him, Happy is the director of Iron Man. And you wouldn't see that because he is himself an actor, and it's really cool because, like, you think, oh, directors, they don't know how to act, but no, they do. And it's just the other one, of course, that always features in his animations, the one who always features in his most of the time features in his productions is Brad Bird. Do you know the voice of Edna Mode is Brad Bird? Edna Mode. I can't do Edna's voice. It's ridiculous. But, yeah, Brad Bird, he starred as Edna Mode in both Incredibles 1 and Incredibles 2. He also, let's just have a look at his IMDb. Actor. Jurassic World. Did he? No. So, Ghost Protocol? Was he in Ghost Protocol? No. Additional crew. Oh, he's been writing credits and whatnot, writers and whatnot. But director, Ratatouille. he was one of the minions, Ambrose the Minion, in Ratatouille. That's fun. And he directed The Iron Giant. Oh, there's a couple of Simpsons episodes directed by him. Interesting. Let's see, was he in Tomorrowland? No. But yeah, so Edna Mode is Brad Bird, and he directed the film that he's in. So, what accent does Edna have? I have no clue. It's Brad Bird. Whatever accent he was trying, it was Brad Bird, and it's so totally Edna Mode, and it's so totally Brad Bird. Seems like some kind of European sort of, I don't know, maybe halfway between French and, like, sort of like, I think maybe Eastern European. So maybe like German and Russian, or German like Czech or something like that. I don't know, but it's very strange, or Greek even. But yeah, whatever accent it is, I don't know what it is, but it's fucking beautiful. And that's the thing, like most of the voices that you do don't have to be in a specific like region. You don't have to actually hit something. You just have to play with it a bit, and of course be directed by your director. Anyway, back to animations. Interesting. Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Let's skip this one. Okay, let's go.
What does EYES spell? What does EY? EYES spell? Yes.
Oh, absolutely. That is what I do in streams. Nothing like having an animation stream. Quillo's animating live stream. Quillo's animating live stream, and I go on tangents for 40 minutes. It's great.
ES spell. S spell. I spell.
What region are you from? I have no idea. Fair enough. I'm gonna guess you, based off of the way that you were typing and your IP address, you are from the region of somewhere on planet Earth.
Ease.
you have been found out. Yep, ha! I've told you. My abilities are unparamounted. Oh shit! In before he is on the ISS. Goddamn. But hey, no, what region is he from? No one's been born on the ISS yet that we know of. I feel like live birth in space sounds terrible. Absolutely. And apparently, if you do get born, if you get born and develop in an environment that is not Earth, then it can be impossible to return to Earth. So that's one of the things that people are like worried about. People going to Mars is that since Mars is like 2/3 of the gravity of Earth or something like that, it's a little bit weird. Hang on, let me just how many G's is Mars? Oh, it is 1/3 Earth. 1/3 Earth. Oh, jeez. So Mars is 1/3 the mass of Earth, which means the gravity is 1/3 less. So if you jump outside now, multiply that by 3, and if you jump the same amount, you would go 3 times taller. You go 3 times higher. So yeah, Mars is one of those places that is 1/3 the size of Earth. So people born on Mars, Martians again, they would be taller, but I think painfully. They would be painfully taller. The same reason why you grow taller in the ISS in zero gravity, because your spine kind of stretches out because it's used to resisting the forces of Earth about 10 meters per second downwards. It's used to resisting that. So that's what your spine is used to resisting. And when you're in zero gravities, your spine kind of just relaxes and stretches outwards. And when you get back down to Earth, it crunches back down again. And that could be incredibly painful for everyone coming back to Earth. And one of the reasons as well that makes it a bit more difficult to be a Martian is the fact that, so when astronauts get back home to Earth, they have to be seated. They have to be seated because their heart isn't used to pumping their blood resisting 10 meters per second downwards. Their heart is not used to pumping in that anymore, so they have to get back to it because they're used to just being able to pump and have blood flow through their body because that's just what it is. That's how it works in zero gravity. But that's why all astronauts sit when they get back down to Earth, because they used to stand and they used to pass out standing up because their brain wasn't getting any blood because their heart isn't suited for it anymore. And they have to get back to actually resisting Earth's gravity. And when born in a situation where you're already in lower gravity than Earth, it could be that Martians could never ever walk upon the surface of Earth because they would be experiencing gravity 3 times as much as that they're used to. So, very, very not good. Imagine, so gravity 3 times as much. How many G's on a roller coaster loop? Okay, so most roller coasters keep the G's felt under 5 G's on an inside loop or bottom of a dip after a hill. So, imagine last time you sat on a roller coaster, when you go down and then up through the first part of a loop, the feeling that you get when you push down to your seat Imagine that all the time, just walking around normally. We are used to walking around in this environment, but if you were a Martian coming to Earth, that is what you'd be feeling the whole time. You just being pushed down because your muscles and your bones aren't used to it. So you'd either have to get really prepared and trained to be a Martian going back to Earth, or you just have to deal with being pushed into your seat, and then, you know, the amount of effort that you have to go just by doing a single thing would be incredibly difficult. You know, something that is weighted for this would be 3 times as heavy, and it would just be it'd be difficult to try and stay up, and then you have to try and keep your heart pumping. You might not even be able to sitting upright properly in that environment, and your head would be 3 times as heavy, the amount of strain you're putting on your muscles. So that'd be the life you'd have if you were a Martian coming back to Earth. It'd be terrible. For the first few months, human bodies are incredibly able to adapt really quickly to their environments really quickly. So I imagine you would be able to survive being a Martian come back to Earth, but it'd be miserable. For either you would never get to the point of being, you know, a normal human being. Sorry, you would never get to the point of being a Terran human, being able to walk around on the surface of Earth, unless we have like power suits and things like that, exoskeletons. Yeah, you may be able to sustain some kind of life, and you may be able to get better at being on Earth. Maximum gravity is about, like, it sucks being in anything higher than, you know, 2, I imagine, because you have to remember that being in a gravity that is, you know, 2 times as much makes every part of you twice as heavy. So if you were weighing 70 kilograms, imagine suddenly being 140 kilograms. That'd be how it is. The only people that I think could survive would be people that are like 300 pounds, or even 300 kilograms, and then on their journey to, you know, a planet that has higher Gs, they end up losing 150 kilograms, and then they're back on that planet, and they'd be the same weight as they were on Earth. So that could be a training mechanism they could do. Put on a lot of weight on Mars. And then in the process of getting back to Earth, losing all of that weight, and then being on Earth and being able to walk around like normal, because they've been, you know, 3 times as heavy, and then coming and then whatever. That could be actually, you know what? That actually could be a significant training method that they could go through. So they'd have to put on 3 times the amount of mass, and then lose that on their journey to Earth, and then they'd be normal. If you were born on, say, let's see, planets, jeez. Okay, so if you were born on Neptune, Jupiter has 2.5 Gs, so that's 2.5 times the size of Earth. Saturn is comparable to Earth. Neptune is 1.1 Gs. But yeah, if you were born on Jupiter, you'd be 2.5 times heavier. You might be 2.5 times smaller, but like shorter, or maybe even like an entire foot or something shorter. But as soon as you get to Earth, however high you could jump on on Jupiter, you could jump twice as high on Earth. And if you went from Jupiter to Mars, however high you could jump on Mars would be 2.5 times 3 is 7.5 times higher. So if you could jump a foot on Jupiter, if you go to Mars, you could jump 7 feet high. So you might be shorter, but oh boy, you'd be a fucking titan in strength and power. Yeah, it's very interesting. Saturn is 1.065 Gs. Mid-latitude, so that's on the highest bit, I think. I don't know. because one of them says equator, the other says latitudes. I don't exactly know what they say about it, but yeah, Saturn is 1.065 Gs. Yep. Having Earth as 1 G, Jupiter is 2.5 Gs, and the Sun is 28 Gs. So if you were born on the Sun,
Ease. 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 AS. 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 AS.
just like the whole vibe I'm going for with pear butter falling over. Hang on, what are you saying here? Suck with Taurus, absolutely. Saturn is comparable to Earth's gravity. Yeah, good luck jumping on a gas giant as well. That's the other thing. There's this one Seth video. It's like they talking about, I think it's endless space, and it's like they have a colonization animation for every single type of planet, and one of those planets you can colonize is a gas giant. And he said, "Who the fuck colonizes a gas giant as their first planet?" And it's like the thing that they said is like, okay, so we colonize the planet. How do we walk around? Very carefully. And it's just like, yeah, good luck jumping on a gas giant. Yeah, imagine a gremlin that's a third of your height that can jump your entire height on one jump. Absolutely. Like a little, like a goblin, a Jupiter goblin. So, Martian... Yeah, a jumpion. You get the same... Martian, Jupiter, Jupiterian, but then you want to make the you get rid of the Jupiter, so Jupitian, and then to make it a bit easier, Jumption, because they can jump high as well. Yeah, imagine a little gremlin. Well, I mean, you don't have to imagine a little gremlin jumping about your height, because cats exist. Cats exist. Jupitorian. Okay, that Jupitorian. That sounds about right. Jupitorian. But yeah, because cats exist. They can jump pretty damn high. And imagine that, but 2 times taller. And maybe that's what you'd be like on Jupiter, or at least a baby from Jupiter would be comparable to a cat on Earth. And then, you know, they could actually jump up on the things, and it'd be cool. Yep, Martians and Jupiter. But then you have to remember that the Martians and Jupiterians are named after the gods from Earth. So they were also named, technically. You can follow the chain of custody, and it's still dirt. It's still dirt. Terrans are named after dirt. Yes.
AS. AS. S.
Yeah, I'm wanting to have like the the general motion of what Pear Butter's doing here be as if she just got sucker punched in the face. That sort of thing, because that's what AS did to her. Just got sucker punched.
AS.
Just got laid out.
AS. You're making
I
me.
can't breathe.
You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. ES.
Would Earth's humanity refer to themselves as Terrans or Tellurians? They probably just refer to themselves as humans. Normal, you know, standard. The standard human, I guess. That'd probably be what it is. I wouldn't imagine... Like, Martians would refer to us as Terrans, but would Martians refer to themselves as Martians? We would refer to Martians as Martians. Earthborn, Earthians, Earthlings. Humans, most likely, just people. What would the Martians describe us as? Probably Terrans. But I don't think someone from Earth, especially in like the first few decades, where you still have the old generation of people that were born, people that lived through the time before multiplanetary humans existed, probably wouldn't refer to themselves as anything. You know, just humans, people. Oh, where are you from? Earth? I'm from Missouri. Where's Missouri? On America. Where's America? Oh, on Earth. Sorry. Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be what it'd be like. Kind of like how you imagine, you know, going to an entirely different country, and then they say, okay, so let me. Imagine someone, okay, an Australian going to America, talking with someone from Wisconsin, for instance, and the Wisconsin person says, "Oh, where are you from?" And the person would say, "Oh, I'm from Dalby." Dalby. And where's Dalby? Oh, it's a little town that's like northwest of Toowoomba. What the fuck is Toowoomba? Oh, sorry. Toowoomba is west of Brisbane. Where's Brisbane? Brisbane is in the southeast of Queensland. Queensland, what the fuck? Australia, Queensland, Brisbane, west of that is Toowoomba, northwest of that is Dalby. That'd be how the interaction would go. You know, oh, where are you from? Where are you from? Human from Earth? Oh, Dalby. What's Dalby? Dalby is like northwest of Toowoomba, west of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, on planet Earth. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You're from Earth then. Okay, sweet. That'd be where it is. And that's exactly how the interaction would go as well. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from, let's just pick a random state in the United States. I'm from Des Moines. Or Des Moines. I'm from Des Moines. I don't know how to pronounce. Okay, fucking an easier one. Hang on. I'm from Minneapolis. There we go. I'm from Minneapolis. Oh, where's Minneapolis? Oh, it's the capital of Minnesota. Where's Minnesota? It's oh, sorry, that's one of the states in America. What is states and what is America? Oh. So America is the country that is on Earth that is... Oh, you're from Earth! Okay, that's awesome. That'd be how the interaction would go. Oh, you're from Earth! Well, I'm from America, but that is on Earth, I guess. Oh, sorry, I'm from Minnesota, which is in the United States, but, like, it's a different vibe. I'm from Minneapolis. It's different from, like, Alexandria or Detroit Lakes, but, like, you know, it's in America. I'm from America, which is on Earth, but like, it's, you know, you wouldn't exactly say that we're the same as like, you know, the same as like people from where the fuck Madrid. You know, it's a different culture, but it's still on Earth. Yeah, but it's a different culture. Yep, but it's still on Earth, right? You're from Earth, okay? Just deal with it, all right? I'm from Mars. You're from Earth. That's what it is, you know. That's probably the begin. Des Moines. All right, cool. Because I know it's one of those French cities, but yeah, that's basically how the interaction would go. Oh, you're from Earth, cool, and that's where it would end.
AS.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Maybe. I mean, unless they want to go to war with every other country. I don't know how it is. Because, like, you know, America already signed the space treaty, which means that no weapons of mass destruction shall be in space. So, but I mean, I imagine that's going to change significantly once, you know, other planets find a different source of warfare that is more powerful than even Earth nuclear weapons. It's going to be interesting where the future will go for humanity, especially if we continue our petty squabbles. I don't believe humanity is prepared for being a spacefaring civilization. Especially with how differently we treat just each other. Yeah, all it takes is one country to violate that treaty and then all bets are off. That's how it goes. I have no idea what anything about anime. I'm not it. Sorry, I have a life. I have a life, I say, as I'm animating multicolored ponies. Shots fired! Shots fired! The treaty is broken! The treaty between weeaboos and bronies have been just severed. The Wee Brony Treaty of 2015. Completely severed by Australian diplomat. There was a treaty? I never signed this. You know the thing about the power of friendship? It doesn't stop bullets. That's the realization I'm not entirely okay with. Yeah, the source material is the only difference, really. That's all it is. And that's like, that could be said of all of humanity, you know, Americans and Russians, they're basically the same people. The source material is the only difference. Except, not really, because the source material is from Africa. We're all from Africa. Like, that's just how it is. We just happened to go up, and then we decided that the rest of the planet was ours, and everyone decided that the rest of the planet was theirs. And it's just like, what are you fucking doing? I'm gonna beat you with the power of friendship with this gun I'm gonna beat you with the power of friendship and this gun I found. That is from something. I can't remember where it's from.
You mean...
And like, the other thing as well is going to be
what humanity will actually look like, I don't think there's going to be any, like, in the millions of years in the future, I think whiteness and blackness will be eliminated, and the only, I say eliminated, but the standard human would be more tan in color, so the way Latinos kind of look like at the moment, and like the big fringes of humanity are kind of gonna like dissipate, sort of thing. I don't think there's going to be as many pure white humans or pure black humans in this spacefaring civilization of humanity thousands and thousands of years into the future, especially since it's not that uncommon to find like interracial on the extreme ends couples these days. I myself am in an interracial coupling. Interracial coupling. And I feel like that's going to become not necessarily the norm, but there's going to, that's probably how like the Imperium of Man sort of thing is going to happen as well. There's going to be this group of very racist white people that's going to solidify around their whiteness, and the majority of humanity as it is going to be, that sort of tan, sort of caramel chocolate. It's going to be more neutral in that sort of sense, and that's how I think the majority of humanity is going to end up, just based on just how the population is going. And I mean, the whole reason why whiteness skin tone exists is because, so blackness exists because in Africa there's a lot of sunlight, and you didn't need to absorb as much vitamin D from the sun because you've got so much of it. And so the pigment became blacker and blacker because the dark color absorbs more of the sunlight and lets less of the UVs that generate vitamin D through. As humanity traveled further upwards towards the European side, they had less sunlight, so they need whiter and whiter skin in order to absorb more of the sun so that we get more of the vitamin D that we need to live. Because of the fact that there's just not as much sun exposure. So that's why whiteness exists, is because we just needed more sun, more vitamin D, because we are essentially reclusive shut-ins, and the majority of, say, England and European things are kind of like this temperature, where it's like, the sun is very diffuse over the clouds and not as much sunlight can get to you because of where you are in the world. And that's why whiteness exists, is because of the fact that it's just we needed more sun. We didn't get as much vitamin D as we needed. That's all. That is it. And then, the other physiological challenges of being in different environments change the way that humans sort of looked as well. And you find that areas that have, so this is a far out. Liver is a common dish in England, yes, because liver has a lot of vitamin D in it, and this was before vitamin D supplements. Plants, I think animals. We are the only humans that don't. Humans are the only animals that don't produce their own vitamin D. And there's this other vitamin as well, vitamin A, I think, that we don't produce, and that's where we get it from animals, because we just always got it from animals. Which is why it's very important that if you do decide to go vegetarian or vegan, that you make sure that the foods that you're eating either has the vitamin D and vitamin A and the supplements that you usually get from meat, or you supplement it until you can find that alternative food source. That's one of these other things. The sun barely shines in England, and when it does, it becomes 41 degrees. But yeah. Make sure he's facing in her direction. So yeah, I feel like that's what it's going to be in the far-flung future, in thousands of years' time. There definitely will be certain groups of people that would either want to retain their current skin pigment, but the general humanity is going to be more Latino-inspired. So people from Mexico even, that sort of skin tone. Or maybe either Mexico or Spain, or Chile, places like that, nearer towards the equator, not white as snow, but not black as night either. It's going to be somewhere in between, a nice little neutral brown. That's what humanity is going to be like in thousands of years. Granted, humans that are born and living on different planets will have different skin tones. That's the thing I'm not thinking about as well. They're going to have different skin tones based on the different planets. And it really depends on how far sort of humanity goes. Because I imagine there's going to be, nations of people, once they settle on planets that have a lot of sun exposure, to be really, really black, and then planets that have not much sun exposure to be really, really white. That's just probably how it's going to happen. Unless, of course, we have different supplements, like if on those planets, like if we colonize Pluto, for instance, we might develop a certain indoor lighting that mimics the sun so that we can get more vitamin D on it. So, UV lights or lights with UV elements in them so that we can still get the proper amount of vitamin D sun exposure that it is. So, yeah. It'll also depend on the population that is sent to colonize each area. That's why I think, once humanity becomes spacefaring civilization, probably be, maybe 100 years in the future, perhaps, and the second generation of people that are able to accept interracial relations, those children are probably going to be going through space. So that's probably why I think more brown sort of colors would probably be sent to scout out the area, and then the next generation would be the ones actually colonizing the area, and that's when it would be more of the brownie sort of thing. So 2 or 3 generations we're going to be. Yeah. And it's just, I wonder if future humanity would edit their bodies so that we could stay human-shaped, or if they'd accept all evolutions with relatively chill genocides. I don't think there's ever been a relatively chill genocide in the past. Maybe we've just been doing it wrong. I could imagine there could definitely be like, so one of the things that I find really annoying with current day space alien discussions, the point of like every single time a sufficiently advanced civilization has met with one sufficiently ill-advanced, there has been just conquest and annihilation sort of thing. But the problem that I have with that is that we only have a sample size of one civilization that's been doing that, humanity. Every single time where humans have met humans with sufficiently in advanced technologies and things like that, it's been persecution and subjugation. But that's just humanity. Humans are the only ones that fucking do. We could be that humans are the only ones that fucking do that. It could be that every other alien species are just either, incredibly friendly, incredibly amazingly helpful, and they say humans as war-waging barbarians because we're still persecuting ourselves, and they're just like, okay, so they've got pretty chill, smart people, but the rest of them are kind of fucking idiots. So yeah, that's kind of how it is. It's like the persecution that it experienced has only been humanity subjugating themselves. And it could be that just every other alien species are actually cooperative and whatnot. We could also be the most merciful. That could also be the potential. But like, in every situation in which would it be more logical to cooperate or more logical to subjugate? I imagine that a good majority of alien species could potentially be more on the cooperative side of things, because that's the only way in which, great scientific discoveries could be formed. The only reason why we got to the moon in the first place is because of all the German scientists that we were able to get from World War II. There was a lot of German scientists working on space rockets and things like that, because they were the best engineers, and they still are. So cooperation, granted, that was an artifact of war. Cooperation is the only way to get through to space, and I believe only the alien species that have made it to space are the ones that realize that cooperation is what we need to do, what they needed to do. So that's my ultimate view of which ones are able to survive. Because of course, you know, one of the great filters that could be for a civilization is eliminating themselves. And I believe humanity is slowly going towards that sort of mindset. But hopefully, once all the silly dictators and all that sort of stuff get wiped out by the process of time, that maybe it won't be as big an issue. Hive mind intelligent species would result in a complex relationship between them and humanity. It would be difficult. I believe, you know, the mindset of humanity wouldn't survive in a hive mind could be interesting to think about. Because, like, humans, it could also be interesting for the hive mind to think about. Because, like, humans, we have our own separate identities and our separate mindset and our separate ways of thinking. And that's what leads to diversion and conflict. But that also led to technological expansion. A hive mind could possibly never get to the point of wanting to reach the stars because there's never been that sort of conflict to be able to do it. Unless this planet has like 2 or 3 or 4 different hive minds, then they'd have to try and cooperate, either compete or cooperate against themselves. They could cooperate amongst themselves while competing and subjugating others. You would think of Soviet Russia making greater leaps in space exploration at the start. Absolutely. The only reason why America wanted to get to the moon is because Russia beat them to space. So that's a sort of friendly competition that you'd want to experience. And the other thing is, one thing that doesn't really get talked about as much, and the timeline that we regrettably are not on, is that JFK was fully ready to cooperate with Russia to get astronauts and cosmonauts onto the moon at the same time, to combine the knowledge bases of both countries to be able to get to the moon. And I believe if that was the case, we may be living in a much better, brighter timeline than we are currently. JFK was fully ready to cooperate with Russia and the Kremlin to get men on the moon. But then JFK got assassinated, and the president of Russia at the time did not trust the replacement. And so it's sort of like, that's sort of how that sort of happened. Russia was, I think the president would have been willing to cooperate with JFK. What was the president? Hang on. Who was in power in Soviet Union when JFK was in power? Cold War. Ugh. The reason why I call it friendly competition is because the actual, the result of the innovations wasn't entirely violent, but the danger presented by those innovations could have been. Yeah, he didn't trust, the Soviet leader didn't trust Nixon. Who was the Soviet leader, damn it? It just says the Soviet Union. But who is the Soviet leader, damn it? When? It's 1963. Khrushchev. Nikita Khrushchev. Sergeyevich Nikita Sergeyevich Khrushchev was the first secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union from 1953 to 1964 and chairman of the country's council of ministers from that point. So, Khrushchev, I'm pretty sure it was said that Khrushchev was willing to work with Kennedy, and if Kennedy had survived long enough to be able to give that speech that urged Russia, the Soviet Union and United States to, Soviet Union and United States could work together to get to the moon. The timeline where that could be, like, it could have been fantastic. We would probably be on Mars by now. We would probably, have continued our space explorations, but the amount of manpower that has been dedicated to continuing the Cold War has been ridiculous. And the Cold War's been going, I'm not sure if it's technically could still quote unquote be still going, because there's still this massive conflict between the US and Russia, and the surrounding territories and whatnot. And Russia is scared because they're losing power, because the ideals behind capitalism seems to be winning out over communism. Even though you find in Europe where they're actually combining the two. You have places like German capitalism, where it is a very socialist, capitalistic style, and you have, socialist programs in capitalist societies with like healthcare and things like that, where everyone gets the same medical treatment, but you're still able to afford better ones if you want. And I think it's a very nice conclusion what we have at the moment, but it's not as good as it could be if capitalism and socialism just sort of understood each other as much as they could have. Yeah, I mean, the Cold War did kind of end with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, but really the Cold War was only really perpetrated by, I don't know much of the history, but it could be that the president in power of the Soviet Union could have just been more Russian influenced. So it's like, like not. I like that. I think the Cold War has ended. Russia's relationships with everyone else is just really tense. Like not nuclear war tense, just your ex walked into the same cafe as you tense. It's kind of like, you understand like the history that you have, but you kind of just don't want to spend much time looking at it. Sort of. Yeah, Kai, you came in at a very interesting point in the conversation. I can't remember exactly how it had gone into it. Yeah, it's sort of like, It has ended to an extent, but while the Russian oligarchy is still in power, we still have a bit of a Cold War. It is kind of why the US and Europe haven't intervened in Ukraine yet. Because, Russia is a superpower. It is absolutely a superpower. And the Earth will die when the superpowers come into great conflict. That's just how it will happen. The Earth will suffer if the superpowers get into conflict. So it is still a bit of the Cold War with what's going. I don't like talking about those sorts of current events because it's very difficult to describe. I'm not Ukrainian, I'm not Russian, I'm not American, I'm Australian. I'm pretty much a neutral third party to most of this. And it's very difficult to consider these sorts of things as they happen. But it is very important that it can be seen as incredibly important that the US does not intervene in this crisis, because if they did, they're picking a side. And, Russia sees the invasion, or I believe Russia sees the invasion, the president of Russia and the soldiers that are invading Ukraine, different to the Russian population, by the way, I believe they see that as a sort of a liberation of the territory of Ukraine, because a good majority of the soldiers fighting there believe that they are liberating Ukraine, not taking it over. We see it as them taking over, but how do we know that the propaganda hasn't affected us the same way as the propaganda of the Russian troops have affecting them? It's very interesting to consider that sort of mindset. And that's why I don't really want to comment on things like that, and specifically like my thoughts and feelings of it. I think people should just leave others alone. That's my mindset. But yeah, It's very different, Jordan. Very different. Picking a side is very different to joining the side, because picking a side is like, okay, so I do want to be able to help this nation here, but to actually send troops and arms, specific American troop and support to Ukraine is fighting against Russia. It's not being on the side of Ukraine, it's fighting Russia. That's a very big distinction to make. So, whilst, yes, you can pick a side, it's very different to joining the fight. And that's like one of the things that's really terrifying, because if the US joins the fight and fights Russia, then the US's allies, England, Europe, Australia, all those things, and then Russia's allies, Cuba, Turkey, I don't know who's allied with Russia exactly, sorry. Maybe even China if their communistic values are true. But yeah, that sort of thing. It's that sort of. Well, I will stop talking about the war because this is not what this is supposed to be. Yeah, it's always interesting the power dynamics that fall into it, but it's a very, very touchy situation. Anyway, we're here for fun. We're here for fun. Okay. Are we gonna have a war about the war in my comment section? No! Don't do that! But yeah, so that's I don't like talking about it, so I won't. Also, hello Kai. You did join the conversation at a very strange time. But this is animation that I'm making based off of a sound clip that I had discovered, and Bright Mac Pear Butter's fur color is the same as Bright Mac's hoof color. That's interesting. Anyway. What is this? It's a sound clip that I had discovered, and I appreciate what it looks like at the moment. Just kind of like what it kind of looks like with this sort of this but stop it. Stop thinking about it. Stop it. Nah, there shall be no fighting in this comment section. And none of the other F words too. Yeah, it looks very weird from this angle, but it doesn't look that bad from this one. And that's the angle I'm animating on. When your Quillo Manar, when your parents walk in. Quillo Manar, but only when your parents walk in, yes. Oh, whoops, did that? Oh, my bad. Yeah, that is when you animate to this sort of thing, yes, you do have to get used to the this sort of you have to get used to it. You can't avoid that, and especially when lip syncing as well. I refuse to get used to it. It will get used to me. Yeah, that is yep. Great. Good fun. Ooh, okay. The rig is sort of breaking here. Oh dear. Okay. The rig isn't breaking, my mind is breaking. Okay. That's fine. Quillo's mixing the vocal chop music for us. Absolutely. Breakcore. No, this is why we can't have nice things, yes.
You're making me.
Okay. Okay.
EY.
Okay.
EY.
Okay.
You're making me.
Okay.
EY.
Okay.
EY. Making me.
Okay.
Oh. One sec. It'll be right.
Making me. EY.
I just love the like that sort of that oh, so good. It's so good. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Alright. Quillo, when your parents walk in. Yes. 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 Go ahead and do that. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jordan. It's good to see that you're getting back to reality as well. Yeah, this stream will continue on for another little bit, maybe another 15 minutes or so, just because I was late to my own stream and I did have to delay this one a couple times as well. But yeah, thanks so much for joining in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Yes. The next stream is gonna be, let's see when it should be. The next stream is going to be in uh 5 days, possibly 5 days, and we'll be ready to rock and roll then. Alright, so
Yes.
this post here. So check this out, ready? This is called lazy animating, otherwise known as cheating or being a dingus. Yes, yeah, go ahead and make food so that you don't die, and I will enjoy the rest of my stream. And yeah, and you enjoy the rest of your day and your food, indeed. But yeah, this is called lazy animating or cheating, where I'm just using a previous pose that I've already done just to get him back into a normal position.
You're making me.
There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a transition pose. Whoopsie daisy. Or essentially, I'm going to use like halfway playhead just to get a sort of general pose of where he is. Quillo, a lazy animator? No. Not in the slightest. It's not lazy, it's efficiency. There's a big difference.
E-Y.
Okay.
E-Y.
Okay.
E-Y.
Alrighty, I think that's going to be it for me. Let's just have a look at what I've done. Quite a lot in 2 hours, which is not bad. Also, 2 hours plus a 40-minute tangent. Let's have a look at my total shots so far. Let's give it a quick look-see. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the music, because that's it for that, and we'll have a look.
Okay. What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes. What is happening?
What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Yes. What are you crying for?
What does...
What are you doing?
Okay, try again. What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Ease. AS. You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. Yes.
Cool. But yeah, so that's what I've got so far. Don't have that long to go. I'm really happy with what's happening right now. So that's really good.
You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. Yes.
That reach out motion is going to have to be redone or like
You're
edited
making.
a bit. Primarily because I feel like I've put sort of
You're making
I
me.
too many small things.
Okay.
EYES.
Because I definitely want to put focus on her
You're
body
making
here.
me.
Oh yeah, that's not too
EY.
bad. She's in the front of the frame and she's in front of Bright Mac, so it's fine.
You're making
I
me.
can't breathe. Okay.
EYES. Yes.
All right. But yeah, so thanks so much for joining me. I will see you in a few days. I will reschedule the live stream, and I'll make sure I'll actually attend to this one properly this time. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me today, and I wish you a brilliant rest of your day. And yeah, goodbye, and good luck. Yeah, sounds about right. Yep. Yep. Hey. Yep. All right. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Bye. Goodbye now. Bye. Yeah.